We are going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. This is week one of our Excel workshop, Data Analytics with Excel. We're going to go for 4 weeks, and we're going to kind of build on each session each week. Right here at this time block. You should have all the registration information if you're all signed up. If you didn't check your name off on the Google Sheet as you came in, if you could just make sure to do that at some point today so they can keep track of attendance, I'd appreciate it. And this is going to be a very kind of project-based, hands-on format. All right, so you should be ready to be getting in a spreadsheet during this session. I'll talk a little bit, and then we'll all sort of try what I was just talking about, and then we'll kind of repeat that for the rest of the session. So that's going to kind of be the format. If you want to go to this link, it's also right here on the whiteboard. In a few minutes, we're going to be using a data set from Netflix as our kind of sample data set for today. So just grab that link at some point. We'll probably get there in the next few minutes after I kick us off with a little bit of intro stuff. All right, so I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit and tell you why I'm here teaching Excel to all of you. My name is Rachel Whaley. I have been working in kind of the data space for about the last 10 years or so in a variety of kind of more traditional data analytics roles, as well as some more kind of less traditionally what you would think of as data jobs. So things like nonprofit, higher ed, kind of bouncing around to a few different industries. I currently work at a startup in the podcasting technology space. And so definitely interested in sort of the intersection of data and media. So yeah, excited to be here. Thank you. I always like to get a little bit of a sense of kind of who is signing up for these workshops. So I would love to get a sense, maybe if you could just hold up a 1 to 5 on your hand, sort of if you haven't really used Excel much before, that's a 1. If you use it every day and you're an expert and you're just here to see if I know my stuff, could we get a 1 out of 5 for people? Okay, seeing 2s, 3s, 1s, 2s, 3s. Okay, fantastic. You're in the right place. We're going to start with some basics. We're going to get into some formulas, but it's all should be pretty straightforward. And I am definitely kind of a very hands-on learning focused person. So when we're doing the kind of working on bits and pieces of your own spreadsheet, I'm going to ask for folks to kind of let me know how you're doing. If you get stuck, wave your hand. I'll come over and help you out. So hopefully by the time you are leaving this session today, you're feeling pretty comfortable with the stuff that we covered. Sound good? Right, sweet. Okay, so a lot of you said kind of level 1, 2, 3 of using Excel, various spreadsheets before. Would love to just get a few examples of the kinds of things you've used Excel or spreadsheets for school projects, work projects. Any quick examples? There you go. Got a couple.
Those two things. School projects,
work projects. Okay. Yeah, maybe keeping track of what's an example of a school or work project?
For instance, right now, I'm using Excel to do some basic analysis for data for an internship.
Okay, great. Doing some basic data analysis. Great. Yeah.
I use it at work to track consumer data.
Okay, cool. All right, so tracking data, maybe adding to some data. Awesome. Any other examples? Tracking a budget. That is a great one that I personally could be a little bit more disciplined at. Yes, very good. If anyone's ever searched for a job or internship, you might keep a spreadsheet of the jobs you've applied for, the last date you heard back from them, the link where you applied, stuff like that. So there's all kinds of different ways to use spreadsheets. Those are varying level of complexity, right? If you're just keeping maybe your own budget or some notes for yourself in a spreadsheet, that's a lot less complicated than some data you're using to do some analysis or put together some kind of report, maybe for your job. So the concepts that we're going to talk about today in particular are pretty applicable to any of those types of spreadsheets. And actually, if you're using maybe a simpler spreadsheet, that's a good time to kind of practice and use some of these things so that you're ready with these skills when you need to get into a more involved Excel project. So specifically what we're going to cover today is how to get a little bit more organized with data. We're going to talk about formatting, conditional formatting. We're going to get into formulas, which are a very versatile tool, can be used all across Excel in a wide variety of ways. And we're also going to talk about data validation, which is if you've ever used an Excel sheet with drop-down menus, that is what that looks like. So those are sort of our three main topics for today's session. I guess that's sort of a repeat. Point that I wanted to make about today is that you're going to be like hands on the keyboard working on some formulas along with me. You can use Excel or Google Sheets, whatever you're comfortable with. If you have a Mac and you have whatever the Mac thing, numbers or whatever, that also works. They're all pretty similar. Some of the names of the formulas and stuff may be slightly different. I am demoing on a Mac. If you have a PC, it should be pretty similar, although this looks like a pretty Mac heavy crowd, so maybe we're all right for the most part with that. There are just going to be slight variations in the menus and stuff. So if your screen doesn't look exactly like my screen, you can't find something, just give me a holler and I'll help you find it. All right. Okay, so we're going to dive right in. I'm going to be switching back and forth between kind of sharing some stuff on my slides here and to sort of my little demo spreadsheet that we're going to be walking through. So just as a heads up on that, if you haven't already, make sure that you go to this link that has to the Netflix data set that we're going to be using in a little bit to start playing with some of this stuff. Okay, so very first thing I want to talk about is formatting your cell. So when you are in an Excel sheet, I'll just open up a brand new one as an example. This is your workbook. These are your sheets or tabs down here. So you may have many sort of separate sheets within one file or workbook. And each individual box here is a cell. Okay, just some basic terms, make sure we're all on the same page. So any data that's in your cell can be formatted in a variety of ways. And a common source of confusion for folks who are getting started with Excel is you can get errors or some weird results relating to your data format. So I want to kind of show you how that works. When you are in your spreadsheet, you might type in a piece of information. Say in this case, I've typed in a number. I've typed in the number 75. When I've typed in this number, I can do sort of a few different formatting adjustments to it. For example, I could say that I want more or less decimal places in my number. It's pretty common. This should be up in your home ribbon over on the right. You have these little icons with the zeros and the arrows. So I can click that button and it's still 75, but it's just going to add or remove decimal places. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now, I can also format my numbers in a few other ways using my number format menu. All right, now this is especially useful if you're working with different types of data. For example, if you're working on your personal budget and you need the data to be in dollars, you just want like the dollar sign so that it kind of makes sense for money. You would just select your cell and then from your number formats menu, which is going to be in that top ribbon, you're going to select currency. All right, so it's still the same piece of information. It's still 75. I haven't actually changed the data in here. I'm just changing the format. All right, so if you have a sheet, you can type a number into a cell, play with the number format menu, see what I'm talking about. All right. Now, here's where it gets a little dicey and here's where you can run into issues. Any cell can be any format. Excel is not smart enough to know, well, it's not yet smart enough to know the type of data that you type in. It might try to guess, but it might get it wrong. For example, I could take this cell, which also says 75, and I could tell it to format as a date. When it does that, it's going to change this piece of data to March 15th, 1900, even though what I typed into my cell was 75. Now, this is pretty confusing and maybe not what you would expect to see. There is a tiny bit of logic here, which is that this is 75 days after the start of the year 1900. So that's how it's choosing to interpret that number. But that's probably not what you meant when you typed 75 into your spreadsheet. So there are going to be cases where you're maybe copy pasting, or maybe you're trying a formula, you got it wrong, you're trying something else. Your data might look weird. It might pop up as a date. It might pop up with decimal places. It might pop up in a different format than you meant. Don't freak out. It's a common source of freaking out if you're new to Excel. All you need to do is come back to your number formats menu. I can go back to number, which is what I started with. And I'm back to my 75. It went right back there. I didn't lose my information just because I reformatted it. It's just showing up in a different way. So if you run into any like weird stuff in your data as you're working today, just remember this number format menu is your friend that's going to help you kind of get back to where you want it to go. Okay. Right. So first topic we're going to dive into for today is data validation. First, I'm going to give you an example of what data validation is. But to do that, I need a little bit of data. So I'm wondering if a couple of you would be willing to tell me your first name, your birthday, and what major you're in. We got a few volunteers? Yeah, in the back.
My name is Liz,
L-I-Z. All right. And what's your birthday? No year necessary.
April 25th.
April 25th. All right, fantastic. And what program or major are you in?
I'm in the Master's Public Relations and Advertising program. So PRA.
Advertising, fantastic. All right, and a couple other people. Yeah, in the front. Jenny, Jenny, right? And your birthday?
Number 19.
Number 19. Fantastic. And what major or program are you in?
Communication management.
All right, management. Fantastic. One or two more? Anybody? Yes. Ali. A-L-I?
A-L-L-Y.
Fine. All right. Birthday?
March 15.
March 15th.
I'm also CMGT.
Right. Fantastic. Let's do one more. Maybe somebody in a different major just for fun. Yeah. Okay. R-A-E. R-U-I. All right. March 27th. Environmental studies. Okay, I'll make up my own abbreviation for that. Fantastic. Okay, great. All right. So here's an example of a case where we're going to want to use some data validation. I was just kind of typing in people's majors, trying to remember the abbreviations, making up my own. That was a lucky guess in that particular situation. But this is an example of a type of data where if I'm going to have a large data set, say every student at USC and their major, I'm not just going to want everybody to free type that in. I'm going to want to select from a list, right? I'm going to want to validate that everybody who's majoring in public relations and advertising says PRA and that nobody spelled it out all the way or that nobody made a typo, right? So there's a great tool in Excel to use for this, and this is great anytime you're collaborating on a spreadsheet with a lot of people, or if you yourself are just trying to avoid typos, if you're trying to categorize information, this is super helpful. So instead of just typing in everybody's major, like I did here, I'm going to make another column that says major, it's major 2. And I'm going to use data validation here to create a drop-down menu for myself with these majors as options, so that as I add rows to this sheet later, I can just select from that list. Okay. So to add sort of data validation rules to your cells, you're going to want to select the sort of spot in your spreadsheet where you want to validate information. All right, so in my case, I have a column already for major. That's that column that I want to validate what's in there. The most common way I use this is to just allow a list of items because I know in my head the list of available majors. So to find our data validation option in your top toolbar here, this is called the ribbon usually. I'm going to come up in my ribbon to the data section. All right, and then I'm going to choose data validation. If your screen's a little smaller, it might not have the words, but it should still have the icon. So you should see that icon with the green and red sort of check marks. So I've selected my cells. I'm going to click on data validation. And I'm gonna choose what I want to allow. Okay, the default setting is to allow any value. I can type in anything I want. I'm gonna say that I want it to only be allowed to select a value from a specific list. All right, and the list I'm gonna give it, I'm gonna type in whatever I want. In this case, I'm gonna type in these majors that everybody listed. All right, and then I'm gonna hit apply. And now, once I've done that, when I go navigate to this cell, I see I get a little arrow just to the right of my cell, this little gray box, which I don't get for my other cells. So the arrow is what I've just added with my data validation. And when I click on my little arrow, I get my 3 options. Okay, so I can select the RA, I could select something else here. And most importantly, if I come in and I type COM management in here, I'm gonna get a pop-up that says, you actually can't type this in here because there's a data validation rule in place. All right. Okay, any questions about what we're doing with data validation? We're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
Question, where would we find that if it's not located in the same place as on the screen?
Okay, good question. It should, even if it's not in exactly the same spot, it should still be under the section for data. Do you have the like page layout, formulas, data section?
I didn't see it underneath.
Okay, and then sometimes if your ribbon's a little bit more condensed, you might have little drop downs. So you might have like a few icons and then a little drop down for like more. Might check and see if some of those are under those. We're about to switch to an exercise, so I'll come help you
Okay.
find it in a second if you don't see it. No problem. All right. Okay, so to that point, we are going to get into our first exercise. So if you go to the link that I have on the whiteboard or at the bottom, you should get to something like this, which is going to have a big data for week 1 button at the bottom. All right, if you haven't already done this, go to your data for week 1 button, which is going to give you this fun little data site from Netflix. This is a fun kind of place to find data to play with. From here, you should download. So hit the little download icon on the upper right of this page, download. You're going to go to lists and you're going to download the most popular lists in Excel format. Okay, that's our data file that we're going to play with. So you should be on that Netflix link. There's the link on the whiteboard there if you need it. Then you're going to go to download lists, most popular lists, Excel. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do, first exercise we're going to do with our data set is we're going to add a column that's going to do data validation. It's going to be for whether or not you've seen the movie. Okay, so you're going to give yourself a few options. Feel free to be creative if you like. I would suggest something like, no, but I'd like to see it. Yes, I saw it and I loved it. Yes, I saw it, but I didn't love it. All right, so the idea is you're going to have a column that you add to this data set. Your data set, once you have it open, by the way, should look something like this. Okay, so it's going to have some Netflix movies, some Netflix TV shows. It's going to have the title and some other information about how much it's been viewed and stuff like that. So your task is to add a column here, apply data validation to that column like we just talked about, and give yourself a few options. All right, so that you have that handy little drop down with a few options. All right, so I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to try that out. So what you should be doing is setting up your data validation, setting up your list of options, and then fill out that field on a few of these rows in your sheet to make sure that the drop down is working. Okay. I'm going to give everyone a minute to do that. I'm going to float around and help you if you got stuck. And first I want to make sure that you can. Okay. Data validation. There you go. You're all good. Yeah.
Question. I did find data validation, but here. I did not see the options you were talking.
Oh, okay. So Google Sheets are going to look a little different.
I feel like it was called a roundabout. Let's try it out. It's in one page, 7 to 7.
no problem. All right, so if you hit add rule, you should get some similar options. Okay, great. Drop down, yeah, okay, perfect. So you're gonna wanna select first the cells that you want your validation to apply to. So in this case, you want to apply all the way down. Yeah, exactly. So select all the cells that you want. Yeah. Exactly,
Mhm.
perfect, and then go to data validation. Great, all right, add rule, and then this is where you're gonna type in your different
okay.
options.
So
Yep.
where was the option to bring this? Because that's what you did.
Yes, so this is, I'm doing criteria drop down. Here it's called drop down instead of list, but they have some other options as well. Like you can make a rule that like it just has to be a number. Just has to be a number between 100.
There's no list option.
There is, it's just called drop down.
Oh, okay.
Google
in
Sheets.
here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Then the labeling is just gonna be slightly different. The same
Got
concept.
it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Exactly. Yes, separated with comments, yeah. Yeah.
Is there any way to I'll never actually go back or
Nice.
undo it?
Okay, so if you have that one cell selected where you have it, and then you go to your data validation. Yeah, that one.
Do you want to extend?
Yes, there you go. All right, perfect. So then it's just gonna give you this again,
And then
you should hit okay. And then you should now get that option in all your cells. Yeah.
Cool, thank
Very
you.
good.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I got here.
Okay,
Do I just type in the word?
yes, separated with commas,
Okay.
whatever you want the options to be. Yeah. Oh, I see. You just separate them with commas. Yep, exactly. Yep.
I
Okay.
think I did it right.
All right, what's that? Just. Okay, now if you click in one of them. All right, let's try one more time. So you select the column.
Yeah, one moment.
Let's just say that.
I just hold it on.
It might be trying to save it as a CSV.
Data again. Okay, let's try one more thing. To give that column and then whatever. Oh, okay, you already did just going through and working on it. All right, so let's do this again. So let's select that column and let's remove whatever.
Right.
Yeah, maybe try. Yeah, once you, or maybe just delete that whole column and then add a column. I'm stuck. Well, if you want, if you have like a coder, you can try Google Sheets, which just has like a very similar thing. Alright, yeah, that'll work.
Oh, there, okay.
Nice, okay.
So then.
Data validation, yep. All right, great, and then. Oh, under allowed, you want to do.
Ah, okay,
There you
okay.
go. Yeah, 'cause that'll give you the Excel drop down.
Ah,
There you go.
okay, okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, anyone else stuck, questions, error messages? Yeah,
I cannot find the, well, I found the data validation, but
Okay.
it doesn't seem to work.
okay. Let's see.
Is it written up Excel?
Ooh, that's possible, but data validation's been around for a while, so you should still be okay. And I think you this little one. Yeah, this Yep. And otherwise should be the same. Yeah, so you just swap to list. Should be good. All right. Yeah, question over here? Okay, in Google, I'm not sure if you can your resume to the advanced options. It's just text, you can set, if you do show help text. Then you can set only message, yeah. Questions, issues, anybody else? Yeah.
The help text is the custom one.
Help text, you should be able to.
Is that a custom error message or something else? Let's do this.
Yeah, so you should have like an error, little error alert thing over here that'll show you, it'll just do like a default one if you don't have this filled out. But you can put in your own text as well.
Yeah, on here it says if the data is invalid, show a warning or reject the input.
Yeah, so also up to you. Typically when you're doing validation, you want to just block the input because if someone makes a typo, you don't want it. You can also just have it do a pop-up, but it still lets them type whatever thing in. I don't find that feature as useful, but it is there. Yeah, good question. All right. Everybody get some data validation working, and did everybody get the Netflix data? Okay, any issues with getting our Netflix data set? Okay, great. All right, we're gonna come back to this data set and do a bunch more stuff. But if there's no other questions about data validation, we will start talking about formulas. All right. Okay, so formulas, if you're not familiar with them, are essentially, if you've done any sort of like intro to coding, intro to programming, there's a similar concept there. If you have not, don't worry. These are like sort of the most approachable kinds of formulas. Even if you're not, if you haven't used them before, if you haven't done any coding, anything like that, not to worry, they're pretty straightforward. And the good news is you get sort of a menu of options in Excel in this little box called Formula Builder, which I find really useful. So when we talk about formulas today, I'm going to introduce you to a bunch of different formulas, explain sort of how they work, give you a chance to try a bunch out. The idea is not to memorize all the existing formulas. I certainly don't have them all memorized. The idea is to have an idea of what formulas can do so that when you know you might need a formula, you can Google for formula for the length of a piece of text. And you can find the formula for that is length. You don't have to like memorize that, all right? So we're gonna walk through kind of a bunch of formulas today, just kind of show you how that works. So the main thing you need to know about any formula that you're looking at is the name of the formula. That's going to go here after your equal sign. And then the syntax of the formula. That just means how many pieces of information do you need to give the formula to work? And what are those pieces of information? All right, so anytime you type in a formula, it's going to look something like this. All right, so in your formula bar up here, once you've already typed in a formula, you can see it up here. All your formulas are going to start with an equal sign. Okay, anytime you type in an equal sign in Excel, that's a signal to the program that you're going to start giving it a formula. Okay. When you start typing, it's also going to give you some suggestions as to what the formula could be. For example, there's a very simple formula called today. And it's going to give you a little pop-up, depending on what version of Excel you have, the pop-up will look a little different, but it should give you a pop-up of something like this, which will explain what the formula does and an example of using it. Today is a very simple formula in that it doesn't take any arguments. There's no sort of input. You just say, I want to know what today is, and it's going to tell you that it's January 27th, 2025. All right, so as soon as you hit enter, your formula will evaluate, meaning it's going to take any arguments you gave it, spit out what the answer should be, but you're still always going to be able to see whatever you originally typed in your formula bar at the top. You have that cell selected. All right. So I can see what my formula is. You can also do this by doing insert formula, and that'll bring you to sort of a window that looks something like this. This is my screenshot from my Mac one. This will just show you a list of all the available formulas, and you can search in there. That's another way. So let's talk a little bit about what types of formulas there are. Very commonly used in Excel are kind of some simple math formulas. This can be all the basic kind of math that you're aware of, addition, subtraction, etc. All right, so I can type into any cell something like equals 4 times 7, 28, right? I can do any kind of basic math like that. As long as I've got my equal sign at the beginning, it's going to evaluate whatever I put after it. All right, the other thing I can do, which I'm going to use in a lot of formulas, is refer to other cells. All right, so I can do something like this. I can have some numbers in some other cells, and I can say equals. Then I'm going to use my arrow keys to go back over to this other cell. I'm going to type in times asterisk, arrow key over to this cell, and hit enter, and that's going to give me the same answer. All right, so when this one is evaluating the formula that I typed in, what it's going to do when it sees G23 is it's going to go look what's in G23. It's going to say 4, great, 4 times whatever's in H23, which in this case is 7. All right, so formulas can kind of work in 2 different ways. You can either sort of like type in the information directly after the equal sign yourself, or more commonly, you're going to be referring to information that's stored in a different column or a different row. Okay. So we got a bunch of kind of basic math formulas. We also have a bunch of date formulas, right? So I already showed you today. You can also do math with the number of days. So for example, I can do today minus a date in the past and find out how many days it's been since that time. I personally like to use this to find out how many days there are until my birthday. So for example, Liz, it is 88 days until your birthday, which I found out using this formula right here. So I said equals I7, and I7 is just Liz's birthday. And I said minus today. So I want to know how many days until your upcoming birthday, right? And once I've got my formula here, I can do copy. So you can either do edit copy, or I'm going to do Command C on my keyboard. And I'm going to paste this down the next few cells, and you'll see it's not pasting 88, it's pasting my formula. So my original formula was I7 minus today. When I pasted it down one row, it went I8 minus today. All right, it came down one row with me. It figured out I went down a row. Same here, I9, I10. All right, so now with just this one formula that I pasted down, I figured out how long it is until everybody's right? Okay, there's a few other kind of formulas you can use with dates. If you just want, if someone gives you a whole date and you just want the name of the month, something like, there's a formula for that. So you can kind of, or if you have sort of the date and numbers and you want to put it together so it says the date in nice text, you can do that. So there's all sorts of formulas for manipulating dates. That's just another like category of formulas. If you want to try this yourself, you can type your birthday into one cell and then do equals today minus the cell with your birthday, find the number of days till you're on. Okay, another category of formula is text formulas. This kind of just has to do with manipulating text. So let's say you might have a column of people's first names and people's last names, and you want a column that has first name space last name. That's where you would use a formula like this one, which is concatenate, which is going to put together multiple pieces of text. You can also do the reverse, right? It just takes the first part of the text or the last part of the text. You can substitute a word. You can change the capitalization of a piece of text from uppercase to lowercase, proper casing, vice versa. All right. So again, just so an idea of the types of things you can do with formulas, we're going to give a few of these a try in a moment. Okay. All right, another category of formulas that's out there is the kind of logic formulas. Okay, these are things like or, if, and, all right? So these are gonna be things that give us a true, false type of answer. I find these most useful, little Zoom thing, in cases like this. So in our little data table, I have some fictional attendance data, all right, fictional because it hasn't been 3 weeks. I don't know who's gonna keep coming back. But I have some fictional data here that is sort of who has attended which week of this workshop. Okay, so this, we have here that Liz has attended all 3 sessions. We have here that Jenny missed week 2, etc. Okay, Jenny, I hope you make it to week 2, but you know, we'll find out. So what I'm going to do with my OR formula is I want a column that just says who attended any session. What's the list of people that have attended any session? I'm going to do OR and give it all 3 of these columns. So in this case, I'm going to say, all right, OR F7, meaning right here, week 1, G7, week 2, H7, week 3. If any of those things are true, right, that's what OR means, that at least one of those things is true, say true, otherwise say false, right? If Liz had been out sick with the flu, missed all 3 weeks, this would say false. And then I can see same thing as my formula goes down a row, the cell references are also going down. So this is my formula that's in row 9, it's checking the cells that are also in row 9. All right, now the formula, because it's going to evaluate any time that it's in this cell, I can go and change my data and my result is going to change. So let's say Allie actually missed all of these sessions. I'll change this to false. And you'll notice that her value here for did she attend any of the weeks changed to false as well. And change it back to true. And it changes back to true. All right. So this is why formulas are very handy. You don't have to update data in multiple places. All right. On a similar note with sort of the logic formulas, and works in a very similar way. So and is the idea that are all of these things true? Yes, and otherwise false. All right, so basically who attended every single week, who had like a 100% attendance record. So same thing, it's my formula, and it can take however many arguments. In this case, I'm going to give it 3 because I just want to look at these 3 columns. And it's going to say, yep, Liz attended all 3. Looks like Jenny missed a week. So this is false, right? Jenny did not attend all the weeks. False. All right, and another very common sort of logic formula is if. All right. So if is when we provide a condition. So what we just talked about was kind of looking at just are things true, are things false? In this case, we're defining what sort of counts for whatever we're looking to provide to our if statement. So in this case, we could check how long somebody's name is. Now, I already gave a formula here, which is our very simple one, len. And all I do for len is I give it some other cell and it tells me how many letters are in that cell, how many characters, if you will, right? So Liz has 3 letters, Jenny has 5 letters, etc. All right, this is my formula. So I want to create a column that says if their name is at least is longer than 5 letters, I want to say long name, and if it's less than 5 letters, I want to say short name. Okay. In order to do that with a formula, I'm going to give it the formula if, and if is a slightly more complicated formula than the ones that we just talked about. If takes 3 arguments that are doing 3 different things. When I'm typing my if formula, I'll get a little pop-up here, depending on your Excel or Google Sheets version, it might be on the right-hand side. And this will tell you what you need to give the formula as arguments. What is the syntax? What pieces of information does it need to get you the answer you want, which is you want it to say long name if it's a long name and short name otherwise. All right. So first thing you're going to give it is a logical test, something that could be true or false. So I'm going to use my kind of simple math. I'm going to say if this number right here that's sitting in that cell, N7, if it's greater than 5, that's my condition. That's the thing I'm checking for. Value if true is my next argument. So if that thing is true, if yes, in fact, it is greater than 5, spit out whatever this second thing is. I'm going to say long name exclamation point, all right, as my text. And otherwise, spit out whatever other thing. All right, so in this case, I'm going to say short name. All right. As with any formula, I'm gonna close my parentheses at the end. All right, I'm gonna hit enter, and all of you have short names. So I'm gonna change my logic. I'm gonna say if your name is longer than 4 letters, it counts as a long name. All right, I'm gonna change that, and I'm gonna, again, I'm gonna just copy and paste my formula all the way down, and thankfully Jenny has a nice long name at 5 letters. All right, so that's gonna show up as long name. Yeah.
The little description on the bottom, you don't have to type that out, right? It's just the order the formula's gonna go?
Yes, exactly. So you don't, so yes, when you're up here typing, you don't actually need to type like logical test or value if true. That's just telling you the kind of placeholder for where you're gonna type it. Good question. All right, and then you'll notice with every single formula we've looked at, right, I've got my equal sign, I've got my name of my formula, and then I've got parentheses afterwards. It's just whatever's in the parentheses that can vary. Okay. All right. Okay. I know I just threw a little bit more at you. We're gonna practice with some of these formulas a little bit. So what I've given you here are a few formulas for you to play with. Most of them we just talked about. For the ones that we didn't talk about, or if you want a refresher, so for example, substitute, I only very briefly mentioned. You can come into your data set, you can create a column. So this first one is gonna be create a category column that substitutes the word films with movies. All right, so in my export, the category thing from Netflix says films. I want to do a new column that replaces that word with movies. All right, so I'm gonna call it my category. And all you need to do is start typing the formula, and you should get a pop-up, again, either just here or on the right-hand side with some little guidance. All right, so you don't exactly know what the substitute formula is, but I've told you here that you should use it. All right, so what you're gonna do is come here, you're gonna type equals, you're gonna start typing substitute, and you're gonna get your handy pop-up with what you need to give this formula in order for it to substitute the word movies with films. All right. And then same for the rest of these. Left is very similar. It's going to take whatever text is on the left, concatenate we talked about, try a little math, and try an if. Okay, so folks work at different paces. If you've done formulas before, you might want to, you might be able to kind of like run through these. If you're new to formulas, you could start with the first one or just pick one of these and give it a try. Essentially what each of these are doing is adding columns to your Netflix data set. So if you do all 5 of these, you should have 5 new columns in your Netflix data set that are adding these pieces of information. All right, so I'm going to give you all a few minutes to try a couple of these. If you get stuck, if you hit an error or whatever, raise your hand. I'm going to kind of walk around and then we'll kind of go through how to do that together. Sound good? Any questions before we do that? All right, I'm going to give you all a couple minutes to give it a try. Question?
What does occurrence number refer to?
Great. So any time that there's, it's in brackets, that means it's optional, not required. So
Oh,
typically you can
okay.
just skip it. Yeah. Yep. Good question. So you're gonna want your text to be in quotes. So your text, is, your strings are gonna need to be in your double quotes. Yep. Do it. Make sure that if you're putting in text as an argument, that you are enclosing it in quotes so that it knows to get the text. Yeah, I would typically just do another sheet in here and then I would copy and paste the whole, all the data. So you can, there's a shortcut, you can do Command A on here. So I'll select everything. And then you can do
Except
copy.
that one.
And then you can do copy and paste it over to your other one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
I did something wrong because I didn't. Just repeat it. So text to search is the column. Take it from here, from this cell.
It looks like it's looking for films English with a lowercase f.
Oh, it's.
It is
it's
case sensitive, yeah.
sensitive.
It is, yes.
Oh, but what if I add an asterisk? If I did this, then will it take any keys? Occurrence.
The asterisk work there. There might be a way to do it case insensitive, but I'm not sure. You might just like convert the whole thing to lowercase and then with a like lowercase formula and then do it might be the way to do that.
So let me try that.
Yeah, it should be case.
And do I have to put the whole thing? No, I don't, just the fruits, right?
Yeah,
Whatever.
exactly. Yeah, whatever segment you want. Yeah.
Okay, so you did A2.
Yeah. And then.
Do you need the text?
And then, oh, and then you need
Yes, so that's the text that you're grabbing. So that's
Need
correct.
quotes
These
and
guys
then
just need to be.
fill.
in quotes.
Oh, like.
Yeah, so yeah.
things, like, exactly.
Q.
Like,
And don't put text at the end.
very
right?
close. You're just missing your first argument. It's like. So the three arguments to give it are the text that you want it to look at, the thing you want to swap out, and the thing you want to swap in.
This is like another family.
So the first thing you want to give it
Literally
is
saw
the
me at-
cell where that text is sitting. So you want the very first argument even before films to be wherever your category is now, which I'm guessing
Yeah.
is like A2.
It's like,
Yes.
It's
but I
different.
don't.
So in this particular row, it's gonna be A2.
Right.
So because you're just typing this formula into this row, you're only doing it for this row in cell. So you're gonna do it for the row and then you're gonna copy paste it down.
There's like that little,
Oh,
there's like that little, like,
Evaluate.
green square, just like in the.
Alright, and then the very
Where
last
it's
thing,
right,
it looks like it
yes,
didn't
use that to
substitute
show
is case sensitive, so make sure if it's capital films that it's you're looking for capital.
That's how you do it.
The first one is the text that you want
And then I
to
swear there was like one time at work
The
where.
second piece you want to give it is what text you want to like substitute out. And the next piece you give it is the text you want to substitute in.
Did something, cause I was like sharing my screen, I did something in my spreadsheet, it's like, oh, why didn't even know you can do that? And I was like. That's right. I know how to do something. So,
Okay.
okay, we only did the first.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're saying that it's all capitals and stuff?
No, like my keyboard settings are not working straight. Like, just say, I wanna do equal, right?
Oh.
And then I wanna use, I don't know. Parentheses. It's going the
Either way, I see what you mean.
So
Like what you're
it
hitting
kind
on
of,
the
it
keyboard.
kind of mess, I don't know what
Is that
happened.
only happening in like if you would just go to like your
No,
Google
it's
search,
happening for
it's happening
everything.
everywhere?
Yeah.
Right. Is there something not to sure?
I go to keyboard
Oh, it's kind of hard to type search.
and try to see how to fix it.
Typing. You're sorry, typing keyboard again. There's gonna be something with keyboard. Like it's on. I maybe try that and then try typing and try to switch that around.
Yeah, I think I might do number 3.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
We just put text in there.
Oh, yeah, so you can just select with your mouse if you want, so A2, and then it'll just fill right in like that. Perfect, yep, you can hit enter, great. And then otherwise, you can also type in A2 if you wanted to, but selecting with your mouse, yeah, and then if you want to copy paste all the way down the column, you can just select that cell, do copy, and then paste it all. Yeah, or you can drag it down there. Yeah, you got it. Questions, errors?
I'm still stuck on the first one. What am I supposed to?
Yes, okay, so if you need a little bit more kind of guidance, you can also go to insert formula and it'll give you more. Oh, perfect. And then you here, it'll give you a full kind of explanation of each piece. So it'll do that for any formula.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so you're very close. The only thing is that this first argument you're giving it should be just the text in that row to go look at, and it looks like you're giving it a whole.
It's the same thing with my cell.
Here.
Well,
Here
just
to here,
in
just
one
the-
row. So your formula is just acting in one. Yeah, so you just need to grab like A2. Okay, so this is actually a little funky. So what you want to be doing is, so your formula about B2 should typically be in row 2. That makes sense. So like this formula should go one row down.
Yeah.
But the first argument is asking for what is the original text that you're trying to change, which is actually not sitting in B2. The original text you're trying to change is A2. So you want to give it A2. Oh, sorry. Okay, so you've already got your, so your formula is already here. You already have it. So yeah, so the top row should be like a column header. So give this a column, say, type a column header in there like category 2 or something like that. Or something, just something you want to call it. Okay. So get the formula out of your top cell, because you don't want it at the very top. Cool. And then here, this one should be your equals substitute.
So
Yep,
add the
perfect.
function
Yep.
here.
Exactly. And then you just want to give it just this one rows piece of information.
So just B2.
Just, well, you're in B2 right now. So,
Uh-huh.
so you want A2 is the text you're trying to substitute about is sitting in A2. So the first one's the original.
A2, right?
Exactly. Yep. And then the piece you want to substitute out, piece you want to substitute in. Yeah. You see another hand? Yeah.
I was able to do substitution.
Okay, great.
The dash.
Cool.
Hours over 200.
Looking great.
It took me a while because once you add the comma,
Mhm.
it makes the other zeros the value change. That's why not to put any commas. For the use per day.
Mhm.
Where do I start?
Okay, so that's gonna be more similar to just the math that I was doing, so just like equals like 4 times 6, right? So there's no name for math. So you have the total views over the last 91 days, right? That's what's in column J there. So I just want that number divided by
I
9.
already did it.
Yeah, you got it.
Analytics, like Google. Wait, when did you take, how did you take it? Which one? The data analytics, that was online. So it's part of my class.
Very good, except you just want to ask it in audience 2.
That was the one reason.
Oh, yeah.
Your formula's just in your one.
So that you
Yeah.
would.
And also,
Yeah.
no,
Because you need that extra motivation.
Yeah, so you're gonna have a, so like if the name of the movie is Princess Bride, I want to call it PR.
Sir is gonna see it.
That's the first thing.
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah, so if you go to insert formula, it'll explain how to.
It was.
Can I just watch your
Yep, so you can just do another comma. Okay. Yep, and then you can do any text.
Actually,
you
if you want
want. So you could do like space. Or whatever you want. And just do text.
Screen.
Perfect. Yeah, you just got the words. Yes, you got it. Yeah, question over here?
How do we get it to 2 decimal points here? Because we don't.
Yeah.
Just here.
Oh, you
This-
just.
Your little zero, yeah, it's the formatting. Yeah.
This is not a form. No, this is like. Oh, was that on there?
Okay, so you're.
Oh, I was like,
I don't know where it's. Okay.
See
I'll put it back open, 'cause I think that'll help.
Yeah.
Yes.
So hit, you can just hit escape out of this.
Had to.
Okay, let's go to formulas. That'll pop open your little formula right here, and then you can search for substitute it here.
Okay.
And you can shift your total.
Longer class, so undergrad, that's where I was trying.
Yeah, because then it'll give you your little list, right? So that's the text you want to reference, that's the old text, that's the new text.
In what
Yeah.
class on transnational?
Anything that's in, like,
It sounds so interesting. And then it's my
down.
How about you?
That one is optional, usually it's in brackets, so like anything in brackets is optional, you can take out. But that one's optional, you can leave it out, just the three.
It's coming from that, and then I have a class.
Okay, so you're gonna want, you're selecting the entire page. So it's adding it, so if your formula is just in row like 22, for example, you just want to tell it to go grab, B22, whatever that is. Yeah. Okay, there you go, nice. Well done.
Is it?
All right, did you have the same question right here? Okay. Cool. All right, stuck error messages, how we doing? Do people get substitute? Maybe give me a hand wave if you got the substitute one working. All right, sweet. Anybody get to left? Anybody get left working? Few hands. Okay, concatenate. Did anybody get to concatenate? Couple of you. All right, let's do a little bit of review. So we'll review those first three, and then I'll give you all a couple more minutes to work on the rest. So let's take a look at substitute. Who wants to tell me what they did for their substitute formula? Yeah, right here in the front.
I did substitute parentheses, and then I selected the previous. I scrolled down, actually selected it, sorry,
Okay, that's okay.
and then I just scrolled down. And then I put comma, parentheses, films,
Films and quotes here.
comma, why did I say parentheses, yeah.
Plug it.
Movies,
Movies
well, and print.
and parentheses. Okay, fantastic. So then I'm getting my result is movies English instead of films English. All right, so all this formula is doing is it says go to A2. If you see this little word, replace it with this little word. All right, so in A2, if you find the word films with a capital F, it is case sensitive. Replace it with movies. You'll notice if I change this F to lowercase, it's not going to work. Why didn't it work? Because it went to A2, it looked for films with a lowercase f, it didn't find it, so it didn't make any substitution, all right? It just gave you back the same text. So those are case sensitive. Thank you very much. And then you can paste this down, you can do copy paste. You can also double click on the corner where it's like a little bit bold on the corner there. If you can double click, it'll paste it all the way down your column as well. Handy little shortcut. All right, that's our substitute. Who's got a left formula? Back here? Over here? I saw somebody, a few of you had a left. Yeah, back here. We get a column. All right, what you got?
Equals left,
Left,
cell number,
parentheses,
it would be the E. Oh, D for you,
for me, it's
Yeah.
D. Yep, you must have just had an extra column. It's all good.
and then comma, however many
Comma.
letters, so 3.
Comma 3 for the number of letters.
Close, yeah.
Close it. All right, great. Okay, so for this movie, red notice, if I just want the first 3 letters, I get red. Why? Because it's going to cell D2 and then it's taking the first 3 letters. You notice if I took the first 5 letters, for example, it'd be red N. All right, but I got my 3 and then I can paste it on down. And I see you get the first 3 letters for all of my movies. Fantastic. All right. Anybody get concatenate? I saw a few of you. All right. So we're just gonna do this one for our TV shows. I'm gonna add a column. All right, TV title and season. All right. Concatenate. Who wants to tell me what they put for their concatenate formula? Yeah, in the back. Oh, was that a hand raise?
I could. So, your show titles.
Show title, so I'm just gonna go over to, for me, it's D22. And then a comma.
And then go to the season
Go
title.
to the season title, just gonna do that with my arrow keys, F22. I could have also typed in F22 if I wanted. Close parentheses. Fantastic. All right, and then you can also add multiple pieces of text. So if I wanted to get my dash in between, I can just do some quotes with a dash and some spaces perhaps. Add another comma. So in this case, I'm just giving it a third argument, and the third argument is just space dash space. All right, all it's gonna do is put space dash space in between my 2 other pieces of text. So then I'll see I get the same thing down there, just with the dash in between. Same deal, I can paste that all the way down. So I have this title and season all handy right here. All right, concatenate. You should see if you are in your little formula thing. If you have arguments that are showing up in square brackets, if you asked about this, those are optional arguments, which means you can skip them. So you don't need to concatenate 4 pieces of text together, or even 3, you could just concatenate 2. But if you want, you can concatenate additional ones together. This is kind of a special one because it has a ... meaning you could concatenate to your heart's content. I'm sure you'd hit a limit at some point, but you can concatenate a bunch of pieces of text together if you wanted to. All right. And if you are in Google Sheets, you should get a kind of a similar pop-up. If you are in on like the Mac desktop, you can do, you should have a formulas option up here in your ribbon. I have it here as well. If I do insert function, I'll get a little pop-up. On Mac, it shows up on the right, which is a little neater, but you can find your formula here and it'll explain how to use it. All right. Okay, we had a couple more formulas on this page. One is just a little math formula and one is an if. All right, our little math formula is we have this column, which has the number of views in the first 91 days. And I just want to know the views per day. All right, so I want to divide this by 91. Okay, and then the last one, the if. I want to add a column that is true if the hours viewed is over 200 million and false otherwise. All right, so it seems like not everybody got to those quite yet. So I'm going to give you all maybe 2 more minutes if you want to work on adding your views per day column and your true false if it's over 200 million column. Okay, sure. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, they'll go on the Annenberg Digital Lounge. Yeah. All right, who's got a views per day column? Yeah, right here. Equals.
Select the cells at the bottom.
All right, J2
Sorry.
/91. Boom. All right, just simple math. So the most basic math functions, just so you remember, don't have like a function name. So we don't type like division or whatever, right? We're just doing kind of the normal keyboard math. And then the last thing we can do for this one, if you want, I go back to my home and I can change the number of decimal points. So it's going to do some sort of default, but I could say I just want the views to be a whole number. So I want to decrease the decimals. So it's a whole number, up to you. And then same thing, I can paste this all the way down. Either way, this stuff has been viewed a lot. All right. And our last one, our if column. So if the hours viewed is over 200 million, let's say viewed 200 M hours plus. All right. Anybody got our if formula working? Tell us what you got. Yeah,
So I did equals if, parentheses,
parentheses.
and then, the cell, I guess, H2.
Right.
And then I did greater than sign. And then the 200 million.
100, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I think that's the right number of zeros.
And then comma. And then I did true, comma, false.
True, comma, false.
And then parentheses.
All right, fantastic. So in my little pop-up with my formula, right, I'm doing my logical test. So I'm doing, is the cell greater than that number? And then this is a simple one. If that's true, just say the word true, and otherwise just say the word false. All right. True and false are special words, so they don't necessarily need to go in quotes because those are sort of values that Excel understands. If you wanted other text like, yep, absolutely, you would need to put that in quotes. All right, but true and false are special words, so they're okay to not be in quotes. I'm gonna hit enter, and it's gonna spit out true. Same thing, I can paste this all the way down. Looks like the first thing that's not viewed that many hours is troll. Okay, cool. All right, any questions about if? All right, if is a very commonly used. Right. Okay, so even if you didn't get quite to all 5 of these, you got kind of a couple rounds of practice using a few different formulas. All right, so the main purpose of this is not to memorize exactly what the arguments you need to give the left function are. It's that if you need to manipulate some text, you can come in, you can do insert, or you can do formulas, insert function. You can find the one that you need, and you can get the details about what it does, exactly how to use it, how many arguments it needs, etc. Right? Great. Okay. So all of the formulas that we just talked about are acting on an individual row. All right. I think a few of you were maybe a little confused about this when we first started. So what I mean by acting on an individual row is this formula, which is here in cell B2, is only about this row. I only want to replace the word films in this row for this cell, right? I can't possibly reflect this full column's worth of information in this cell with something like a substitute. So I'm acting in an individual row. That's all the formulas we just did, right? First 3 letters. I just want the first 3 letters of the thing that's in this same row. And then we copy paste it down so that that's the case for every row. But the formula itself is only acting on one row at a time. Make sense? So there's a sort of another category of formulas, if you will, that we commonly call summary formulas, or you could think of them as column-based formulas, meaning you're going to be summarizing information across a bunch of rows, typically from a whole column. All right, so to show you a couple simpler examples of what that looks like, I'm going to come back to our little sample kind of birthday name data set from before. So some examples of some summary formulas are average. Okay, our average formula looks like this, equals average. And instead of taking an individual cell, it's going to take a range of cells. Okay, so you'll see it says N7 colon N10. What that means is it's starting at N7 and it's selecting every cell up until N10. It's taking that whole range and then it's going to take, in this case, just the mathematical average of those values. So in this case, the average length of a name in this data set is 3.75 letters. All right, so this is a little different than the formula that we did before because I don't need to find the average of each name, right? I want to find the average of all the names. This is more that kind of summarizing category of formula. Okay, we just talked about if. There are some kind of cousin formulas of if you will, like count if and sum if. All right, these are just applying some if logic to the sort of summary concept. So count if, I can give it a bunch of cells to look at and count whether a certain condition is true. All right, so for example, I want to know how many students attended all the weeks. All right, it looks like true, false, false, true. So I can see with my eyeballs that it's going to be 2 students, right? But if I wanted to count that out via a formula, I can give it count if. I can say, go look at that same range of data. So go look at Q7 to Q10 and just count any time that a value in that range of cells is true. All right, and that in that case, it's going to be twice. All right. Very similarly, we can do a sum if, which is going to say, go look at these cells. If the value is greater than 5, go add up the value in the corresponding column. So what do I mean by that? Sum if is going to take a little preview open. All right, so it's going to take a range of cells I want to evaluate. It's going to take a condition I want to evaluate them by, and then it's going to take the actual cells to add up. All right, so because I'm still in my formula bar, it's got them all selected for me, which is handy. So I'm going to say, go look at N7 to N10 length of name. All right. And if any of those name lengths are more than 5 letters, add up the number of days till their birthday. Okay. Now, in this case, nobody's name is more than 5 letters. So I'm going to update my little criteria here. And I'm going to say if it's more than 4 letters, add up the number of days until your birthday. Now, just looking with our eyeballs, what's that answer going to be? Only one person has more than 5 letters in their name or more than 4 letters in their name. And it is 235 days until Jenny's birthday. All right. So that my sum if should give me 235. It's not going to add in the 88 or the 47 or the 181 because of this column doesn't meet my if criteria. Make sense? So I should just get my 235. All right, so those are some examples of summary formulas. There's also, I left off the very simple, just sum equals sum, which I can just grab a bunch of cells and add them up. Okay. All right. So we are going to play with some summary formulas on our same Netflix data set. All right, so you should find the sum of hours viewed. You should find the average runtime. If you want to be fancy, you can convert it to minutes because it's in hours in our data set. Okay. Hint that there are 30 minutes or 60 minutes in an hour. Ooh, I don't know how many minutes are in an hour. For each of the 4 categories, see if you can find the average runtime in hours. Okay. And we want to find the total views for content that is ranked 1 to 5. So not any of the content that's ranked 6 to 10, but just summing if our content is ranked 1 to 5, what are the views for that content? All right. So this is kind of same deal as before, right? A few different kind of practice exercises with these summary formulas. So these you'll want to do kind of in a separate section of your sheet. So what I would do with these if I were you is I would have all my main columns with my data and I would come over and I would make a little summary table few columns over that might look something like this. And then those formulas are gonna be referring to my whole columns of data over here. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to just do, say, total hours viewed, I might type something like that, a little label for myself so I know what it is. I would do my whatever summary formula. I'm just gonna do sum as an example. Select my data range. In this case, I'm just gonna select this whole column for a demonstration. All right, and then I'm gonna hit enter. If you're getting any especially large numbers, you can just make your column a little wider so that the formatting shows up properly. All right, so these are your kind of summary formula prompts. So again, with these, you probably want to do them a little bit over in your sheet. Some of them you could also do at the bottom of the column if you prefer. So yeah, I'm going to give you all a few minutes to try those out. And a reminder that you can do your insert or your formulas and then insert function. So you get your little explainer on how to use average and sum, etc. All right, I'm gonna give you all 5 or so minutes to work on those and I'll float around if you run into questions. That first one needs to be a logical test, meaning what are you testing G2 for? Equal to something? Is it less than something?
So I should just. Make them bigger.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so then the commas, it's always gonna read the comma as a separation between argument. So it's just gonna get confused with extra
Oh,
commas.
so I should just.
Yeah, so just leave the commas out of the number itself. Yeah,
And then true.
exactly. That should do it. Nice.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
Yep, select all your stuff. You can also just hit.
Oh,
the top,
there we
yeah.
go. Okay, and then that's what I tried last time.
Oh, so this is, yeah, this is thinking you're about to type another formula in, so you just wanna hit comma.
Okay.
Yeah. You should be following this guy. Yeah, I guess it's.
There we go.
Yeah, because it happened to be column H, I thought you were typing a formula that started with H.
Okay,
That, yeah, so ignore that one.
okay.
Yeah, and then this might be one that you might wanna open up your function homework thing, yeah.
Actual cells to some, so.
And if you're just doing a sum, if you don't have any conditions, that formula is just sum. You don't need any if you're just adding
Oh,
everything together.
okay.
Yeah. So this is another one where, so this second argument is in brackets, meaning
Okay.
you don't need it. So H through H is selecting everything in that column already. So that's actually all you need.
Oh, okay, so that colon really.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay,
All the way
so I
through.
can just end it like that.
Got it.
Okay.
Very nice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I say for each of the 4 categories, do you want us to do the average 4 times?
Yes, that is, yeah, yes. There's a couple ways you can do it, but yes, that is a good way to do it. so in that case, you wanna give it in quotes, the name of one of the categories. Yeah, so you just wanna make sure it's in quotes though for the text.
And the average rate. I have to. Specific or just.
So you want it to like kind of mirror how you selected your other column. So in this case, you just click through A to select all of that first A column. So here you just want to do F through F or whatever. So you just want the like. You want to do A through A and then like F1 to F3 because those aren't like parallel. See what I'm saying? So it should just be like F through F, but make sure you quotes around here. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm guessing that might be because it's not called films exactly. Column A. Oh, there you go. Those are hours. Yeah, runtime is in hours. All right, show of hands if you got the first couple done. First one or two? Got a few people? Okay. We're gonna review the first two of these, all right? So sum of hours viewed. All right, well, I guess this is the one I sort of accidentally did for you before, but that's okay. All right, so sum of hours viewed. So whenever I'm doing a summary, it's always good to give yourself a little label. So just type in a cell next to it, a little label of what it is so you remember. All right, and then all I'm doing here is sum equals sum, just my simple sum formula, and then I should have a range of cells. I could either have H through H or whichever column ends up being your hours viewed. I could also have done H2 through whatever the last one is, H41. So this is functionally the same here. It's often just easier to select the entire column. So if you just have H through H, that's totally fine. But either way will give you the same answer. Okay, so all I'm doing here is sum H through H. I don't need sum if for this because there is no if. I just want to add up all the total. Okay, any questions about sum? All right, and then let's review average runtime. Bonus if you converted it to minutes. Anybody get average runtime? Anybody want to tell us what you got for average runtime?
Like the number or?
The formula you typed in.
Oh, I just put equal average
Average
and then I highlighted the runtime.
runtime. Fantastic. Okay, so the average runtime is 4.5 hours. I think that's because this includes TV shows. Did anybody convert this to minutes? Yes.
I just put equal, convert.
Oh. Okay, equal convert.
And then I highlighted that, yeah. And then I put parentheses. Hour HR,
Sure. Wow. Okay.
comma, parentheses, or. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I didn't know convert was a formula, so that's
Oh,
great.
Sorry, how are we supposed
No,
to?
that's
do it?
awesome. There's no supposed to. Excel, there's frequently many ways to do things. Another way you could do this is just take your hours and multiply by 60. 60 minutes an hour. Either way, totally fine. This one is actually, if this is a spreadsheet, you're collaborating with someone else, this formula makes it a little more clear what you're doing. If somebody was like, why is this number so much bigger? They would click on it and they would see convert hour minute. That makes sense. Multiplying by 60, not necessarily as clear why I would be doing that. So
Show us your way again.
it's great. Yes. So
Oh,
very simple, just the math, just multiply by 60. Yep. Very good. Awesome. Thank you for that. Cool. Learned something new today. Okay. All right. It seems like folks maybe need a little bit more time to work on the category average and the sum if. People need a couple more minutes. Okay. I'm gonna give you all maybe a couple more minutes to look at those. If you're feeling lost. First thing you should do if you're feeling lost is make sure you open up your formulas, insert function menu so you can kind of see what you're supposed to be doing. If you're still feeling lost, give me a wave and I'll. Yeah. Yeah. What should be working? Is it not working?
it works with most. It's the last part, because I have to match it up with this.
Mm-hmm.
So then, is this how it's done?
So yeah, so the thing you want
This
to do. Okay, I think you've just got it switched here. So yeah, okay. So the range is the range you want to evaluate for the criteria. This is the criteria. And the last thing is the actual numbers you want to add up. So I think you just have the
should
two
switch
flipped.
these.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, the reason that that's in quotes is because that's an expression, the less than 6. Like you want to tell it to be the less than 6 together.
It's
Has the
the,
quotes.
it's the two things. I didn't know which one came first.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm putting these first because this is what I want them to look at.
Yeah, so if you pop this little guy open, you should get the hold down arrow right here. That should give you your little explainer right here, and it'll give you a little example. Right, so the range to test against the criterion, pattern to apply, and yeah,
Range to test against the criterion.
that's the
This
first.
is my criterion.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah,
Or that's the range you want to test. That's the one where you want to look if it's less than 6. Second thing is your criterion, so is it less than 6?
right.
And then the third thing, which is kind of up to your screen right here, is the sum range, is the actual thing you want to add. If that criteria is true.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. All right, who's got an average by category? No, for sure a couple people do, because I just walked around, so. Let's see, our first category is films in English. So. Who has got average runtime for films in English? How would I find that via formula? Yeah. If. Great, in my case it is AA, so we'll do that. Typed out films English, perfect. I'm gonna spell it the same way it's spelled in the category name.
That's like the, column.
Great, which for me is column I. Fantastic. Okay, great. So I'm doing average if. There's a couple different ways to do this one. I'm doing average if. The thing I want to go check for my if criteria, that's my first range. So I want to look in column A, that's my category name. and I want to look in category name to see if the category name is Films English. And if it is, I want to take an average of the values that are in column I for those rows, okay? A very similar thing I could do here, I could do the same thing and sort of a second way to accomplish the same thing. I could do average if. I can do column A, just like I did before, but instead of typing in my text in quotes, I can just go select this cell, which where I've separately typed it in. I just made my little table. It's my label to myself. So it's grabbing O12. The only thing that's sitting in O12 is this category name. Okay, and then I use my same third argument, just that same column I for my runtime. And I get the exact same answer, right? So the only difference between this average if, it's column A, the phrase Films English, column I. The only difference is that instead of the phrase, I just sent it to a cell where it could find that phrase. Those two are totally equivalent. One is not better than the other. I chose this one because it saved me a little typing because I'd already typed this as my little category label. Totally up to you. All right. Any questions about how this works? Average if, why these two are different? All right. Now, there's another sort of, another way you could have done this, which is these, you might notice, are all sorted by category. So you also could have just done average of the runtime for just these 10 rows. So you could have just done runtime average if you wanted for rows 2 through, what is that, 11? And that would also get you the same answer. Okay, I would encourage you to use an if formula because if this data gets sorted or messed up later, that might change your response, but that would also totally work for this data set. All right, so just to demonstrate that, I could just do average, and instead of average, if I can type, and instead of doing my whole if thing, I'm just going to grab the runtime, just going to visually look with my eyeballs, make sure I get the right rows. And that's going to give me the same thing, just because I manually selected the range instead of letting Excel do the if. Also works. Okay. Any questions about average? All right, and then all I would do is just repeat this for the additional categories. So if I want to get films non-English, I'm going to put that here in my little data table. I'm just going to call this something like summary. Average runtime, always good to add little labels. And so in this case, if I paste my formula down, so this one where I was referring to the category name in O12, if I just copy paste this down one cell, it's going to update with me because it's for this one going to look for the average of whatever's in O13, which in this case, as it very helpfully tells me when I hover, is just the phrase films non-English. So that's another handy reason to do it with the if formula, and with our little cell reference is you could just put all your categories here and then drag this little formula down and it would grab for all of them. All right, cool. All right, and our very last one, sum if to find the total views for a content ranked 1 to 5. All right, so we see that we have 4 different categories here and each of them is ranked 1 to 10. So we essentially just want the views for our top 5 in each category. All right. Who's got a sum if for me? Yeah.
The formula is sum if parentheses the column that has the ranks in them. So that would be D for me.
Great. Let's column C for me.
And then the criterion, which would be ranks 1 to 5, so anything less than 6.
Anything less than 6.
And then what we are actually summing, which is the runtime column. So that would be whatever it is.
Great. I'm actually going to grab the views column,
views
but runtime would
column.
totally work as well.
Yeah. J.
Very good. All right. I'm going to close my formula. I'm going to get an error. So I'm going to go back. The reason I'm getting an error, normally you get a little pop-up that'll tell you something about your error. In this case, my criteria is missing something. So
Parentheses,
yeah,
quotation marks.
quotation marks, yes. So if you get an error message, the best place to look is to go back to your little formula definition and specifically to the examples that they have pop up. So if I did that, I would see this example, which is A2 to A5, some random data. I don't care if it's an A2 to A5, but I see they were doing greater than 160,000, and they've got that encased in quotes. All right, now that's because we want Excel to understand that less than 6 is an expression and not two separate pieces of information. Okay, but you don't necessarily need to know that. All you need to know is to look here, look at your little formula explainer, pop that back open, look for an example, and that'll help give you some clues, right? So if I add my quotes and just say less than 6, it's going to sum up column J for any rows where column C is less than 6. Column C is just our ranking. All right, so these are all our views for our top 5 ranked content. All right. How are we feeling? We got some Excel formulas. Feeling okay? All right, very cool. Yeah.
Can you go back to the average if formula,
Yeah.
please? Because I did it just pulling down, just average, not average if.
Yep, so average if is very similar. So to pop open my little thing works very similarly to the sum if you were just walking us through. So same thing, you pick your range, you pick your criteria, and then you just pick what you want to average instead of what you want to sum. So very similar to what we did before. Now, in this case, our criteria though is not greater or less than a number. Our criteria is just, is the category the same text value? So that's why the criteria is just a string of text. It's just looking, is the text matching this value? So same fish. But otherwise it's exactly the same as the sum if.
I'm getting a error.
There's no space between average and if. Average if is its own formula.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So your formula names are never going to have a space in them. The formula is all one word. So you want your equals, your formula name, and then your parentheses with no spaces. All right. Okay, we have one last thing. I go to a workout class on Wednesday mornings, and the last 5 minutes of the workout, they always say, "Oh, we just have one last little thing." So that's what this is. What we're going to do now is practice combining formulas. So some of the greatest power in Excel, I see fear on your face. It's going to be okay. One of the most powerful reasons to use Excel is because all the formulas we just talked about can be combined and stacked on top of each other. So this is like taking your Lego set and making it into a Star Wars ship, whatever. All right, this is actually putting the pieces together to make something cool. So let me explain how combining formulas works. You can essentially put the entirety of one formula into the argument of another formula. Okay, so for example, if I want to take someone's full name, remove all the spaces, and find out how many letters are in it, right? My name is Rachel Whaley. I take out the space in the middle, that's 12 letters. All right, that's what I want to do. I could do that first with one formula for substitute, whatever the text of my name is, substitute a space for nothing. So just 2 quotation marks together, just nothing, right? Takes out the spaces, which would give me this, right? My full name, no spaces. And then I could do a length formula that just says take the length of this, however many letters, 8, 9, 10 letters, okay? Now I could do this in 2 different formulas, which in Excel I would need to do in 2 different cells or 2 different columns, right? I would have multiple places where that information is. Or I could accomplish the same thing in all one cell by putting this whole piece in where my argument normally goes for my other function. All right, so this is exactly the same. This in green is exactly the same formula that we did in its own cell here. And I'm just subbing it into the argument for my other formula. All right, so we can do this with any formulas in Excel, which is pretty awesome. I will show you another example. Okay, so earlier I did sort of two different formulas, right? I got the length of everybody's name in this column with my just len formula. And then I did my if, where I said if the length is greater than 4, long name, otherwise short name. I can do those two things in a single column right here. So if you look at my formula for my original if, I had if n7 is greater than 4. This formula is otherwise exactly the same, but instead of n7, I had length of e7. Okay, I'm just substituting in this other formula, length of e7, that I'm referring to. I'm just slotting it into that same place. And I actually did not update this with a 4. It's not using my same criteria. Once I do that, it will give me the same results. Okay, great. So same if formula. All I'm doing is instead of going to this cell to get the results of this formula, length of E7, I'm just popping it right in to this cell. All right, this is very cool. There's no reason that you can't do it this way, right? Do it in multiple cells. That's a good way to figure it out the first time you're combining formulas. But once you get the hang of it, it's much faster to write them this way. Once you are a little bit more comfortable, once you've been using these a little bit more. Okay, so what we are going to do now is try combining formulas. I think, let's see. Yeah, you could do either of these. So these are sort of two separate exercises. This first one is a kind of combining summary formulas, and this one is combining sort of row-based, text-based formulas. You can try either or both. Okay, so the first one is a summary formula. Find the percentage of content, so how many pieces of content have a runtime greater than 2 hours. All right, so you can do that in a couple different formulas, or you can do it all as one. All right, remember, if you're finding a percentage, you need to find the number that meet the criteria greater than 2 hours, right? If greater than 2 hours. And you also need the total number of pieces of content. You divide those two. Okay, as a hint of formulas to combine. All right, this one, our second one, is to create a URL for each show, a fake URL, right? So we basically want to concatenate together Netflix.com and the name of the show. But first, we want to put the name of the show in all lowercase and remove the spaces. Okay, so we can do that with a couple different formulas in a few different cells. But you can also do it by combining your formulas. So what I would encourage you to do, you can pick one of these to start with, either one, whichever one sounds more fun to you. All right, try doing it in separate columns, the sort of steps in separate columns, right? So maybe make the name of the show all lowercase just as its own thing. Open up your formula browser, or you can Google for a formula name. I think we mentioned this one before. But what I want you to get to is combining your formulas like this. All right, so that it's one formula is referencing another formula. Make sense? So again, you could write them out separately and make sure they each work. And then all you need to do in your last step is just copy paste sort of your one formula into your other formula. Okay? It sounds a little complicated, but I promise it makes a lot of sense once you get rolling. All right. I'm going to come around. I'm expecting there might be a few more questions with this part. All right, so if you're doing the URL one, remember that one should have a result for each row. If you're doing the percentage, that's sort of just, that's just a summary. So that'll just be one number for your whole data table. Right? Some formula name hits there. so you put the space in quotes, the space itself, so quote, space quote.
Oh, wait, I did it wrong then.
Yeah, so you want to
Any
just,
column.
well, the title, so you want to put in the URL. So yeah, you've already done here, you put it in lowercase, right? So I would just, so that's your text to search. And then your next argument would be in it. Remember, so this one's this one is each individual row, so you had N2 is the correct thing. Yeah. N2 is good, and then you want to replace, so your next argument, your thing to replace is space, and the next thing the thing to replace it with is nothing, or your empty quotes with nothing between.
Replacing it to replacing it with nothing.
Yeah, so just quote, nothing in between the quotes. Yep. Yeah, so you need your quotes with nothing in between. So here you have a quotes with some space in between, and now you need to tell it what to replace. When it finds a space, what should it replace it with? Quote, nothing, quote. Yeah, there you go. Enter. Nice.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, substituting a space with nothing. Yeah. Right, anybody else stuck? Errors? Not sure where to start? Let's talk about how to get to these. I'm gonna start with show URL. All right, in the back, would you be willing to tell us what you did for your formula?
Okay, sure. It's first, just a second. First you need a concatenate
That Nate,
function
great.
and put the www.netflix.com
Great, netflix.com
slash,
slash.
and then if you put a lower function,
Lower function, all right, this converts letters in a string to lowercase, very good.
and within that you put a substitute function
Great, I'm gonna do my substitute function,
and substitute the show title.
great. Which for me, I think is in column D, so I'm gonna go D2, all right?
The space to be nothing.
Great, so I'm gonna do quote, space quote, so I'm telling it to go look for the space character that's in between my two quotation marks. And you got one more argument after this?
Yeah, to be nothing, just two boxes there.
Great, the way I communicate nothing, I can't actually have nothing, I have to have two quotes that have nothing in between. Yes, very good. All right. And the very last thing, when I've got all my functions together, I gotta make sure I close all of my parentheses. All right. So in this case, I have 3 formulas that I'm stacking together, so I wanna make sure I close all 3 of my parentheses. Look good? All right, I'm gonna hit enter. Boom, netflix.com/red notice, all in one column. Pretty cool. Now, I could have done this with, I could have done a column where I did my substitute, next column where I did my lower, referring back to that column, next column where I do my concatenate, referring back to that, right? I could have done that 3 separate columns, but it's pretty nifty to just type it all in here, copy this all the way down, and boom, my Netflix internship project is done, right? Awesome, pretty cool. All right, anyone get our percentage of content with a runtime greater than 2 hours?
I got a percentage. I don't know if it's the right.
Okay, all right, you wanna tell us what you got?
3.
Well, do you wanna tell us what your formula is? Sorry.
It wasn't anything with count. I used percent if.
Okay, great, let's try that. Percent if. Ooh, can't type. Okay, percent if
The runtime column
runtime column
is greater than
greater than 2. All right, fantastic. It looks like, are you in Google Sheets?
I am.
Okay, percentif might be a Google Sheets only feature, but it's all good. We can do a very similar thing. So I could have also done count if, so I can just start by counting how many things are greater than 2 in the runtime department. So I'm just gonna do my count if, which is gonna take 2 arguments, my column and my criteria. So I've done my count if, and then all I would want to do after that is divide this, right? To get a percent, I just need to divide this 27 by the total number of pieces of content. Get a percent of things that are longer than 2 hours. Now I could look with my eyeballs and say, okay, there's 40 rows in here, so I could just divide by 40. That would be one way to do this, divide by 40. There's my number, and come in my number formatting menu from the very beginning, circling all the way back to the first thing I talked about, and change this data type to a percentage. Okay, so technically this is combining formulas because I'm doing countif and math. So it's technically counts as a combination. You can also do this. I'm going to copy my formula, but make an adjustment. Instead of dividing by 40, I can just count things. All right, so I'm going to count my number of pieces of content. Count number of columns that have this filled in. Boom, okay, and that'll give me the same thing. All right, so here the formulas I combined were my count if, all right, which I just did here. And then to get my denominator, all I needed to do was just count the total number of things, right? Because my percent is just my fraction of the total. So I've got one column or one formula for grabbing the fraction that I want, one formula for grabbing just my total count, and all I'm doing just in between is dividing them. So different way of combining formulas. I'm doing it for my summary formulas here, but either way, I get my 67%. Here, I didn't format it as a percent yet, so I can come to my number format dropdown and change it to a percent. All right. Cool. So same deal. I could have done each of these formulas in separate cells and then done another cell that was cell 1 divided by cell 2. That also would have worked, but it's pretty convenient to be able to combine them. Okay. We covered a lot of stuff today. We covered data validation. We covered some basic data formatting. We covered using a variety of different types of formulas for text, for math, for logic, for dates. And then at the very end there, we combined a lot of those formulas together, which is pretty awesome. So what we're going to do for the next 3 weeks of this workshop is keep building on this stuff. So next week, we'll do a quick review of everything that we covered today and then teach you some additional advanced things you can do with formulas, which should be pretty fun. The week after that, we're going to talk about making charts and tables in Excel, which all builds towards creating a dashboard in Excel, which is kind of taking all your formulas, all your visualization components together into a single dashboard. The idea is to give you sort of like a mini portfolio project that you could show someone if someone asked you if you know Excel. I've got a couple recommended resources on your little thing where you got the data link. I've got a link down here at the bottom for more resources, you know, blogs, websites, stuff. I'm even including a TikTok account that I recommend, as long as we have TikTok with Excel tips. So whatever your preferred way to keep learning is, that's some stuff I would recommend. And the video and the slides for all this will be posted on the annenbergdl.org website. So I hope to see you all back at the next session. Tell your friends. I think we've still got a few open spaces. If anybody wants to hop in the next session, they can. I'm going to hang around up here for another minute or two if anyone has any last questions. Otherwise, see you at the next one. Thanks, everybody.